Hi, it's Alexis Hasselberger, time management and productivity coach. Have you ever heard the quote, "What gets measured gets managed" by Peter Drucker? You probably have, and you might have wondered, like, what does this even mean? What should I be thinking about this? So, what gets measured gets managed. This is the quote. And this, I think, comes up a lot for me in the work that I do with folks. And it's because we need a baseline to be able to start improving, right? If we just start improving, start trying things, we won't know how far we've come, right? We won't know if we're getting better or not unless we have a baseline. And that's where measurement comes in. Now, measurement is not always like the sexiest of all of all techniques and tools. Sometimes it is, in fact, a little boring, but it's something that can be done in a relatively short amount of time to get a lot of data. And it's something that is, I think, pretty necessary as a first step to be able to improve a lot of the things that we do, right? And so when I work with folks, right, in my coaching programs, my group program, my one-on-one programs, we start with tracking a couple of different things that I find are really important. But I'm not going to talk about just that. I'm going to talk about a number of other things that you could be tracking that wouldn't take that much effort. Might be a little boring, sure, but that would get you pretty far. So I want to talk about what some of those things are. The first thing that we track when I work with folks is around our time. Now, a lot of people will tell me, I know exactly where my time goes. And they would be wrong, right? I would say, I don't think I've ever worked with somebody who did not have some insights that came out of time tracking. Now, sometimes those insights are just confirming what they knew, but most of the time, there are significant insights in where we think our time is going because time is subjective, right? If you are spending time, I'll give you an example from my life. I've been spending a lot of time at the pottery studio. When I am there, time goes by in a flash. I will look up and realize it has been 3 hours and I'll be like, what? How did that happen, right? It feels like no time at all. Meanwhile, when I'm doing like more boring tasks around my house, maybe I'm doing laundry or, something like that, or even some things that I do at work, right? Like transferring my tasks, things like, or transferring my notes, things like that. It feels like it takes forever, even though it really doesn't. And this is because time is subjective. So often we don't really have a sense of where our time is going, where we might be able to find, surprise time windfalls, where we might be able to shave some time off of things, where we might just recognize the fact that actually we are spending the right amount of time on something and that's okay. That's working for us, right? We don't know until we start tracking. Now, do I track my time all of the time? No, because it is kind of tedious. And in fact, I just came off of 2 weeks of tracking my time. I track my time about 2 weeks a year. And really, I'm tracking for things like, am I exercising enough? Am I sleeping enough? Zoom really likes to do these hand motions now. Am I working too much, right? Sometimes I might be more specific about what I'm tracking. Sometimes I might be tracking for things like, are the tasks that I'm doing things that only I can do, or should I be delegating or outsourcing some more of these things, right? There's lots of things that we can track, and we usually get some insight. So time tracking can be a great thing. You don't have to commit to doing it all of the time. You can commit to doing it for a few days, for a week. I think that's great if we could do it for a week and see what we get, right? Again, I only do this 2 weeks out of every year. We can track our distractions. This is another one that I work on with clients. Because so often what we think our biggest distractors are actually turn out to be different things entirely. So I'll give you one example of this. I had a client who he thought, you know what, I am having a lot of distractions. I feel like I'm distracted all day long. I'm not exactly sure what is distracting me, but I'm going to guess, like everyone else on the planet, that it has something to do with dings and pings and notifications and all of that, right? What actually happened when he tracked his distractions for just a couple of days was that we found that it was two things that had nothing to do with technology at all. His two biggest distractors were thirst, which was an interesting one. He was finding that he would be thirsty, he would walk, he would go to the kitchen, he would get a glass of water, and then, would get distracted by something and it would take him 20 minutes to get back to his desk. So what was supposed to be 30 seconds to get a drink of water ended up being 20 minutes. The other thing was one of his kids, not the other kid, just one of the kids, right? And so what we were able to do is to look at that situation and say, okay, what can we do about these two things? So first one, super easy. Put a big water bottle on your desk. Now you don't have to leave to get the drink of water, and we're shaving, many 20 minutes off of the day that we can use for something else. The other one, maybe a little bit more tricky, but we were able to make it work. And so that was to have a conversation with the kid that was causing a lot of distractions about how to meet that kid's needs while also not having him distract his dad like all the time, right? And was it like one conversation and done? No, of course not. But it improved significantly once we knew what the issue was. So tracking your distractions can be something that's super easy to do, and you can gain a lot of insight from that. Now, what else? I think, impulses, right? How often do you say, like, I have shiny object syndrome, right? I know that I have shiny object syndrome where I want to go, oh, that thing over there, right? And maybe we have impulses to do something right now, to open up a tab right now and go down a rabbit hole right now. What if you just tried tracking the impulses for, I don't know, a couple days, a week, maybe even just an hour, and see what are the impulses? What we mean by that is, like, we have the impulse, and instead of doing the thing, just write it down so you don't forget. Just write it down and then see what kind of things are like pulling you away. You may find, as I often have, that the thing that felt super shiny that I wanted to follow, once I kind of set it to the side for a while, it loses its luster. And you think back, like, why was I going to, interrupt what I was doing to do that? Like, that's not even relevant, right? So impulses is something that you might want to track. Another thing that you can track is spending, right? Sometimes we're like, I need to save money, and we start making all these cuts, right? But what if you started just by tracking to see where the money is going? So don't change your behavior at all. Just track for a month, maybe, or a week, right? Just depends what makes sense for you, and see what actually you're spending your money on. Because you might be able to see from there, there are some things where I could make a cut without it affecting my lifestyle, right? Maybe there's stuff you weren't even using that you spent money on. So really, you can think about this not from I have to take action right away, but I just need to get the lay of the land. That's what I'm trying to get, so that I can then take more proactive actions, and ones that will likely be more meaningful because you have more data. Another thing people track a lot is exercise related things, right? If you want to get faster at running, how are you going to know if you're faster unless you get a baseline first, right? Unless you start tracking that. There are so many apps that will do this very easily. Probably there's one already in your phone. I like using Runkeeper for running. I know lots of people love Strava. I mean, there's endless choices here, right? It's made pretty easy to do. So tracking your exercise can be something. Or let's say that you want to start lifting heavier weights, right? You got to know what you can lift first before you get hurt by trying to lift something heavier, right? So that's another form of measurement. And then one more that I'll share is just around sleep, right? I would say that 90% of people that I know would report not getting enough sleep, that they're not getting as much sleep as they need in their lives, right? And sleep is incredibly important, but it also feels very elusive, right? We all kind of know what that revenge bedtime scrolling is, where we're like, we haven't had enough time for ourselves all day. And the only time we can get to ourselves is in the wee hours of the night. So we're stay up late watching TV or scrolling on our phones, and it feels good in the moment, but it feels really terrible the next morning, right? So we've all been there. We all have had times when we haven't gotten enough sleep. And it can feel daunting to try to get more sleep, because it feels like the reason you don't have sleep is because you don't have enough time for all the other things in the day. But you can just get started by tracking it, right? You're not even making any sort of effort to change your behavior right now. You're just tracking. And I will say, when I started tracking my sleep years ago, just by tracking, I started getting more sleep because I was more mindful of it, right? Just a little bit at a time. Now, did I need other interventions to get more sleep? Yes. But once I was able to see what my sleeping patterns were, it was much easier for me to make the changes that made sense. So a couple of the changes that I have made, one of them is just around grayscaling my phone. I realized that I can grayscale my phone, make it turn into black and white at a certain time, via an automatic setup in my phone. And I do that. I have it turn black and white at 11 p.m. because that's a signal to be like, stop what you're doing, stop scrolling. If you look at your phone, it's probably bedtime. Does it work every single time? No, but it's made me way more mindful about turning off electronics, like before I need to get into bed or before I am, trying to get into sleep mode, right? So sometimes you just start tracking, and then you can start to see what changes you can make to improve from there. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room, and this is tracking all these things sounds tedious and boring and hard. And how am I even going to remember to do it, right? I feel you, right? I don't look at any of these things and think like, you know what I love doing? I love tracking stuff. Like, that's super fun for me. No, it's not, right? But not everything worthwhile has to be fun. And there are ways to track things that don't take a lot of time and effort. We don't have to rely on our memories. We can set alarms for ourselves. We can put post-it notes on the bathroom mirror. We can put a post-it note on the side of our computer. We do not have to rely on our memory to make this happen. So I would love to know from you. What's something you've tracked and then improved? Let me know in the comments. Or are you inspired to start tracking something? Let me know in the comments. And make sure to subscribe if you want to keep getting this content.
Thank you guys for watching this video, and just a quick reminder that only 13% of people that watch your videos are actually subscribed, so it'd be a big help if you were to subscribe.